Yeah, Coach. Could you walk us through the decision to switch to Taylor Heinicke?
Yeah, obviously, when Des came back a few weeks ago, and that's why, plan was to let him finish out the season, and that's what the plan was. And then you've got to be willing to adapt, and the same thing we planned. And I don't want to keep doing switching week to week and or half to half. That's not what we want to do. But we feel right now where we're at that Taylor gives us our best chance, and you have to adapt. And so that's where we're going to go. So that's the plan with Taylor going forward.
And with his skill set and the 2 games that he played, you feel confident you can tailor a game plan for him to?
Yeah, absolutely, Led. It's anybody else on the roster, we got confidence in. That's why they're here. The Minnesota game, very different than Arizona. Obviously, the result at the end wasn't what we wanted either time, but there's a lot of things that they're different players. They both have good skill sets, and that's part of our job. Make sure we play to the strengths of the players and execute a plan to go win.
Why didn't it work?
Well, look, there's a lot of things that go on. I've said this many times, and it's the same thing that you should feel a responsibility when you're a head coach, and the same thing if you're a quarterback. There is shared accountability, and there's other things that have to go on to make sure you have success as a quarterback. Journey's not over for Desmond. You look at the history of this league, and plenty of quarterbacks, but where we're at right now as a team, we feel like we feel like Taylor gives us the best chance right now. And those are the decisions you make. Des has done a lot of good things, and again, it's not all on him, but we're, part of the responsibility of that position, just like as the head coach, to do what's best for his team, is to make sure that we're taking care of the football. You're, not putting things at risk, and that's part of the job description of a quarterback. And I say that, and I'm cautious with my words because you're not looking to blame somebody. It's no different than when you got to make a change at left guard. It just happens to be the most premium position, right? That's what pro football is about. And there's nothing, different levels of football and what this league is and why the quarterbacks are compensated the way they are. I mean, there's a responsibility that goes with it, and there's a importance to the game, and it's why it's covered the way it is. But Desmond's a very tough-minded kid. We love Desmond, and he'll be a play away. If God forbid something happens, play 1 or play 55, he'll be ready to go, and that says a lot about him. And these aren't easy decisions, but, we try to have great, honest conversations with all our players, and he said the ball could bounce his way again. Mike, we appreciate what he's done, but this is what we need to do. We need to go win this game Sunday against Indy.
To follow up on that, when you say where we're at right now as a team, where you're at is still having a chance to
Absolutely.
get to the postseason, and how important is that intangible in terms of making this decision?
Yeah, it's all part of it. You try not to get emotional with it, and that's why you're very careful, because if you truly care about, look, we all know what we signed up for. That's why I love this game. Like, you want to be in pro football, you want to be judged. And if you don't want to do that or you want to be comfortable, like, that's not what this, like, don't lose perspective of that. And that always kind of bothers me when people kind of act like a victim because of criticism, or you lose a couple and you're looking. That's not what this is about. You care about the people and what is, what we signed up for. And it's the greatest game ever invented. And you feel like you got to do what's best for the player and the team. The journey's not over, but where we need to go, we feel like Taylor right now, so we're sitting here today, gives us that best chance. And those aren't easy decisions, but that's why they pay coaches to make those. And I say that because I got so much love for Desmond Ridder and what he's done for this team and what he'll continue to do.
Just to be clear, this is you're looking at this as through the end of the season now with Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's your plan, just like, but you have to be adaptable. Just like if, look, you don't like the way something's going, maybe it's offensively or maybe it's on special teams defensively, that's your job. Like, there's no perfect solution sometimes. And I take, a lot of consideration in the responsibility of this job, because I think sometimes it's easy to look like, hey, let me just blame something on this person or that person. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Arthur Blank, your boss,
Mhm.
last night, they said it's committed to you, but we'll see where it goes at the end of the season. Where do you feel things stand right now? What have you been told in terms of your future?
Well, I think like everything, Mike, and I said it on Monday, it's professional football. You sign up because you want to compete, and you want. Look, I am so fortunate because every building you've covered different places, right? And one thing we have here in Atlanta is an unbelievable culture. And taking this job, I could not have a better mentor or boss. You know, and it's every place I've been different. I've never been in this role, but I've watched from afar. And all you try to build with any kind of leadership team is consistency, and that's all we've ever had here. He's been an unbelievable mentor. But when you're in pro football, your job is, you know, you put yourself out there like you want this. I talked about this Monday, and your job is to win. So nobody's going to be more frustrated than myself, and nobody's going to put more pressure, which I want. And this is what you embrace. I love it. I love the challenge that, like, hey, look, not happy and frustrated because you lose a couple games, just like we were right before going to New Orleans. But that's what this is about. And if you're ever looking to get into pro football to be comfortable, like, shame on you. Like, there's nothing. That's not bravado. That's what you love about it. You want to compete, and that's what the job description is. Part of the job. And thankful every day I've got the opportunity to do this because you're doing something you love, and I love that part about this profession. That makes sense. Like, yeah. So every building's different, and who knows how they work. But I've had one of the greatest setups I think you could have in terms of consistency and unbelievable cooperation throughout the building. That's why I love working here so much.
In your observations of these types of situations and coaches who've been in these situations, I imagine you've seen guys struggle with the balance between sticking with what they believe in and who they want to be versus it's not working, so do I need to change? How do you balance that?
Yeah, you balance it every week, and that's a great question. It's like if you're in business, right, and you believe in your vision because you don't want to be wishy-washy. But like anything, there's things that may happen out of your control. You know, if you're running a business and natural disaster happens and you've got to pivot. Doesn't mean you want to lose your, you know, what you're building, your vision, your culture, but you got to be flexible to adapt. So if things don't happen maybe the way you want the results, like you don't want to get, there's a fine line between wishy-washy and just making change all the time or saying, hey, look, let me look at this very objectively, and you can use an obstacle or temporary failure to say this may be the best thing that happens because it forces you to look at it a different way and you adapt and you become much better because of it. And that's the belief you got to have. And there's history will tell you that in any industry and a lot of businesses. And that's what gets you, because you do see a lot of positive, but you can't sit here and say, oh, we're so close. But if some of the same mistakes keep happening, you got to fix them. And out of some of these things, sometimes it comes your best. And it's happening in my coaching career in smaller ways, but it comes some of the best lessons you can learn and makes you a lot better. And that's what you've got to use is here we are. All right. We've got to adapt to a couple of things here or there. And there's some things I need to do differently. And that's a good thing. Or you go the other way, what you're talking about. You start making excuses. You start throwing Coach A, B under the bus. You start throwing like a bunch of players. And that's why I'm very cautious what I'm saying about Desmond. This isn't something that's overnight, and I'm very empathetic to that situation. But that is part of your job, and that's what will come from this. And that's why I got so much conviction in what we're doing. It's not being hard-headed and saying, oh, well, you know. But that's why I'm fired up about this week and the challenge and to go play a really good Indianapolis team here on Sunday. That's what you want.
You mentioned Desmond and your love for him and what he's done for the team. What specifically, maybe, is there anything particular you're thinking of when you think about those things and the way you feel about him?
Yeah, it'll be a learning opportunity for him, and he knows that, and he stands in there, and which not a lot of young players do. Again, learns it as a learning experience, and like I said, there's a lot of quarterbacks that go on and do a lot of good things. Sometimes you learn some tough lessons, and he'll adapt, and I promise you he'll be ready to go if he's got to play two, and he'll play well.
If he had run out of bounds and he kicked the field goal in the game?
That's another good question, right? Right, there's a fine line between winning and losing. And sometimes, right, if you winning can mask some other underlying issues? And that's a great question. All right, say the ball bounced a different way right at the end of the last 2 games. So we're sitting here at 8-6. If there's some other fundamental things, and you hope it doesn't take, feeling like a 2-game slide, or feeling that, all right, well, we're not where we want to be, to make that change. And that is the hardest thing week in and week out in this league, is to see what's being objective when you're winning, because that can mask some things too, and that's a great question.
Is there anything you learned from last year's quarterback situation and that decision that helps inform this year's, or anything you learned from that you now?
Yeah, you learn from it all, right? And it's easy on the surface to say, all right, well, this happened last year, okay, but they were completely different, and different team, different set of circumstances, part of the career. Yeah, the result was the same, so I get it, and you look at it a lot of ways, but yeah, you learn from it all. The mistakes you've made, hey, maybe I should handle it different. Yeah, you absolutely learn from them all.
What is it that you learned from that?
Well, yeah, things that you go in and what your, maybe your expectation is, or what you're kind of emphasizing, whether it's short-term or long-term plan, and so, maybe things leading up to that, hey, what could I have done differently? Okay, in the moment, what happened? I think that the hardest thing too is because it's such a emotional game, to not let emotions get in the way sometimes. And so maybe if you have regret, or you say maybe, hey, I should have done this. So and that's in any situation you make when you've got to make tough decisions. So.
Speaking of those tough decisions, I know that they have to be made, but how difficult was it to have that conversation with Desmond for a second time?
Yeah, if you've got any empathy or true care about somebody as a person, they're never easy. But again, we all know, just like as a coach, when you ask the questions like, does this bother you? It's like, again, it's what we signed up for. It doesn't mean you've got to do things without dignity, or lose your empathy, or perspective, because you care about the person. And so, yeah, those are private conversations, and those are never easy. And I'm confident that Des, this is just the beginning of his career. Great things will happen for Des.
How do you try to remind him of that this is not the end of the road for him?
Just daily conversations, talking about things, a lot of things as you go through a whole season, and now 2 years with somebody, and yeah, there's a lot of things. You go back to reference points, or, hey, you're not the first person this has happened to, I'm not the first person that's made this mistake, or whatever it is, and same thing, you try to learn.
When these decisions are made, the guy who was a starter ends up being the number 3. We've seen that a lot across
Right.
the league. I guess, what gives you the confidence to keep him as the number 2 versus maybe completely?
Because his habits, a little bit different, but obviously, leading out of Tennessee and where we were going to Minnesota, and he did it in a hard situation, then a little bit different this one, but obviously not being the starter, he handled it like you expect somebody that cares about their job and it's a pro, and because that's what's going to tell you everything. Whether you're a coach, player, when things aren't going the way you want, how you handle things, adversity, right? And so his history and just how he's been the last couple of days.
Where are you at health-wise, and maybe get
Yeah.
some of your starters back?
Yeah, right. So, it felt good last week, and then, a couple game down decisions, and guys that didn't play. So, we were down, I believe, 7 guys between the O-line and D-line. Everybody but McGarry and David will be out there today. So that's a positive, right? Guys that didn't play, Drew and Chris will be out there, which is great. Then Bud will be back out there today, and so now other guys obviously won't, Contavious and Grady, but David and Caleb are the only guys on the active roster right now that won't be out there because of injury. Calais and CP will have their normal Wednesday routine, but that's where we're at right now.
How difficult is it from a team perspective, I guess, transitioning from a guy who everyone has kind of rallied around the whole year, and then you go and throw in a new face or a new guy?
Sure, that's right, when you talk about professional football and that position, everybody's looking for the consistency, but unfortunately things happen, whether it's an injury or wherever you're at in your program, and decisions have to be made. Like, you don't really want the inconsistency there, but I don't think, you know, the way that, depending on how your team's built, the personalities in that room and really throughout that locker room, these guys, you know, they'll rally just like they did around Taylor last time. It's what it is, and it's a real team in there, and those guys will respond.
You released Travis Bell yesterday.
Mhm. Yeah, Tommy, that's another one. I thought you'd, Tommy, toe guy, we signed D tackle.
What is it about him?
Yeah, it's just, you know, a guy that we've, you know, that's what you're, like a lot of moves you make and around the league, and this time of years when you have injuries or there's a guy you like that may be on somebody's practice squad that you've evaluated, and that's what a lot of teams do, especially this time of year, right, when you're doing whatever. So excited to have Tommy in here.
Anything else?
Yeah, Coach, the play, Zach Harrison, for
Mhm.
you, how's he, you saw the big splash play in the
Yeah.
game, but how's he been developing for you?
Done a nice job. You know, obviously Zach being a younger player, coming out of a big program and being in a veteran room, and the way we wanted to bring him along, and every week he's a very consistent person, and that, I mean that in the highest compliment, and it's paid off. You know, you see some of the fundamentals, a lot of the work he's put in, and then given the opportunity, you know, to play a little bit more, and yeah, he took advantage of it last week for sure.
Taylor, in his conversations with us, has always positioned himself as being as a guy who's in a support position for Desmond.
Right.
From the time he signed, he said he was here to be Desmond's backup. When he was given the starting job, he said he still wanted Desmond leading the quarterback meeting. How did you see him on the field in that role the last time you made this change, and do you want to see anything different from him in this change?
Yeah, well, you know, last time because of where we were, what had happened in Tennessee, you know, like I said, I use that variable. The circumstances were different, like what happened in the second half and kind of where we were at going into it. So it was again, you got to be transparent. You're not perfect, but that's why Taylor said it, because it wasn't like we're sitting there trying to play mind games. It wasn't like saying, hey, this is some permanent thing. There were some things we needed to work through. But this one, you know, when you make these decisions right now, we told Taylor that's the plan. He should, you know, so he needs to prepare as a starter. And that was always your job as a backup, which is, you know, you don't get all the reps sometimes, but mentally you've always got to prepare that you are a play away. And that's a hard thing to do, but the guys that do it well have been around this league for a while. That's why you see some consistency in certain guys that have been backups and come in and win, and other guys that are backups and they get another opportunity and they take a hold of it and their careers change. Taylor's had a lot of success in this league in big moments. And that's why we signed him. But when you sign him on the front end, it's, you know, you better mean what you say. And again, we're not perfect. So if you're going to sign somebody, tell them it's a quarterback competition, that's what it should be. But when we signed him, we were transparent. Say, hey, we got a young quarterback, and you know he'll be ready to play. And just before you sign your contract, this is what the job is. We're not doing some sales pitch and telling somebody something. You get them here on the contract and then do something else. So he's been a pro about that, and I've had so much fun working with Taylor Heinicke and all those guys in that quarterback room.
Seems like due to injuries or situations like this, quarterback play in the league there's been a lot of changes throughout this year. Why do you think that maybe there's been so many issues with the team?
I can't speak for other people. You know, it's a great question, and a lot of time you could probably reflect, especially in the off season, but you know, between whether it's injuries or just an influx of young quarterbacks, there's a lot of things going on that it's probably not just one thing. I think, you know, that's what you want, and the thing that's driven pro football, and when there's a lot of consistency in high quarterback play, it's what's helped grow this game. I mean, look at the last 20 years. Some of those guys played a long time. So is there a little bit of a change in guard? Sure, that's probably one factor. Are there things that defenses don't get credit for as they adapt, or maybe some things change up front? As, you know, there's a lot of variables into it. I use that word again. There's a lot of reasons maybe that comes up. So, yeah, it's a great discussion, and probably give you a better answer when we weren't in the season. But that's my shortest answer I can give you.
Anything
Anything else?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.